The twin suns of planet Alaris 9 burned low on the horizon, turning the metal buildings of the mining colony into a sea of gold and rust. The air was thick with dust, and every breath felt like swallowing sand. People rushed through the narrow alleys, carrying tools and oxygen tanks. Among them moved a girl named Mira, a human with tired eyes and rough hands. She walked fast, her heart beating hard in her jacket. She carried a small bag of stolen food. Behind her, a shout echoed, "Thief! Stop that girl!" The guards ran after her, heavy boots slamming against the metal floor. Mira turned into a dark alley, her lungs burning. She knew the cameras were watching. She knew the punishment for stealing. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. At the end of the alley, she reached a broken vent that led underground. She crawled inside, her fingers scraping against cold steel. She moved through the tunnel until the noise faded. Finally, she reached a small hidden room under the colony. It smelled of dust and oil, and inside on an old bed lay a small alien child. The child's skin was pale silver and his breathing was weak. Mira sat beside him and opened the bag. "I got it, Lyran," she whispered, pulling out a few protein bars and a water capsule. The alien boy smiled faintly, his eyes glowing softly. "You shouldn't have stolen again," he said, his voice fragile. "They'll hurt you if they find out." Mira brushed his hair back gently. "I promised I wouldn't steal again," she said quietly. "But I couldn't watch you starve." Lyran tried to sit up, but his body trembled. "The others? They don't care if we die," he said, coughing weakly. "They took our air filters away, Mira. We can't breathe like humans do." Mira clenched her fists. She remembered how the colony leaders had shut down the alien living zones, claiming it was too costly to keep them powered. Humans had oxygen tanks and air processors, but the alien refugees, Lyran's people, were left to suffocate in silence. She gave him a piece of food and watched him eat slowly. Every bite he took made her heart ache. This wasn't stealing, she told herself. This was saving someone. Suddenly, a voice shouted from above, "Mira, we know you're down there." Her blood froze. The guards had tracked her. She grabbed the empty bag, pushed Lyran back onto the bed, and whispered, "Stay quiet no matter what happens." The hatch above opened, and two guards dropped down, their helmets glowing red. One of them grabbed Mira's arm roughly. "You again?" he growled. "Didn't the last punishment teach you?" Mira struggled, but they pulled her up and dragged her into the street. People gathered around, whispering, pointing. Children watched from behind their parents. The head guard threw the bag onto the ground. "Caught her stealing again," he said loudly. "She'll be sent to the correction mines this time." The crowd gasped. The correction mines were a death sentence. Mira lifted her head, her face streaked with dirt and tears. "I wasn't stealing for myself," she said, her voice breaking. "Lies," the guard spat. "That's what you said last time, too." She looked at the faces around her, cold, silent, judgmental. She felt alone, like the whole world had turned to stone. The guard raised his weapon. "Any last words before we take you?" he asked. Mira looked toward the dark horizon where the dead side of the planet stretched endlessly. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I promise." "I'll never steal again." The guards laughed, pushing her into the prison transport. But deep in her heart, Mira knew it was a lie. Because the truth was simple. Lyran would die without her, and she couldn't let that happen. As the transport doors closed, she stared out the small window. The last light of the setting suns flashed across her eyes, and in that golden glow her face turned hard. She whispered softly to herself, "Just one last time." Far away, in the shadows beyond the colony walls, something ancient and alive pulsed beneath the ground, and as the stars rose over Alaris 9, a faint blue light flickered from the Forbidden Zone, waiting for her return. Night fell heavy over Alaris 9. The sky glowed with twin moons and clouds of red dust drifting above the colony towers. Inside the dark cell, Mira sat with her knees pulled close to her chest, her eyes staring at the floor. The walls hummed with the sound of distant machines. Her wrists still hurt from the metal cuffs, but her mind was somewhere else, somewhere underground, with the alien child who needed her. She whispered softly to herself, "Lyran, please hold on." Her voice cracked in the silence. Outside the cell, footsteps echoed. A man in a gray coat appeared, his face hidden behind a breathing mask. He looked at her through the glass and said, "Mira, the council will decide your punishment tomorrow." Then he leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Unless you tell us where you took the stolen food." Mira stayed silent. She didn't blink, didn't move. The man sighed. You humans never learn, do you? And then he walked away, the sound of his boots fading down the corridor. Hours later, when the guards changed shift, Mira noticed something strange. The air vent above her bed opened slightly, and a small round drone slipped inside. It hovered quietly, its lights blinking blue. Mira's eyes widened. She whispered, "Lyran." The drone beeped once and projected a small hologram. It was the alien boy, weak but smiling faintly. "Mira," his soft voice came through the tiny speaker. "I found something big." Tears filled her eyes as she whispered back, "You shouldn't have sent this, Lyran. It's too dangerous." But Lyran shook his head slowly. "They're lying to everyone," he said. "The oxygen shortage." "It's not real," Mira frowned. "What do you mean?" she asked. Lyran's image flickered. "The leaders," he whispered. "They're stealing the air generators. They sell them to off-world traders for gold and weapons." He coughed, his image breaking apart. "They cut our life system so no one would notice what they were doing." Mira's heart pounded. It all made sense now. The dying aliens, the reduced oxygen, the guards always guarding the supply stations. She clenched her fists and whispered, "Those monsters." Lyran looked scared. "Mira, there's something else," he said. "My people. We have an ancient machine buried under the planet. It can make air, clean air for everyone, but—" He paused, gasping weakly. "But it's locked by an old code. We need someone human to open it." Before Mira could answer, the sound of boots echoed again. The drone beeped twice and shot back into the vent, disappearing. The cell door opened and the same masked man entered. "You have a visitor," he said, his tone cold. Mira's eyes widened as she saw who stepped in. It was Rex, her old friend, a mechanic who worked in the lower districts. He looked nervous, avoiding her eyes. "Mira," he said softly, "I came to help." She didn't trust him, not completely. But when he whispered, "I can get you out," she felt her heart skip. Minutes later, the power lights flickered, and the cell door hissed open. They ran through the narrow tunnels, alarms blaring in the distance. When they reached the exit gate, Mira turned to Rex. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Rex looked down, his voice shaking. "Because I saw what they do to the aliens. It's not right." They escaped into the cold night air, hiding behind old containers near the colony walls far away. The forbidden zone glowed faintly blue, a dead land filled with rusted machines and radioactive dust. Rex pointed toward it and said, "Whatever you're planning, it's suicide." Mira looked at the horizon, her eyes filled with determination. "They think I'm just a thief," she said. "But this time I'll steal the truth," Rex hesitated. "Is this about the alien kid?" he asked quietly. Mira nodded. "He's dying because of them," she said, her voice hard. "And I won't let it happen again." They reached an abandoned hoverbike and Rex hot-wired it. Mira climbed on, feeling the cold metal beneath her hands as the engine roared to life. She looked back at the colony, glowing like a trap under the twin moons. "Once I'm gone, they'll hunt me," she said. Rex looked at her sadly. "They already are." The bike shot forward across the wasteland, red dust rising behind her like a storm. The wind howled around her, and she felt both fear and freedom in her chest. Lyran's words echoed in her mind. "There's a machine buried under the planet, a secret that can save us all." As she neared the edge of the forbidden zone, the ground trembled faintly. Her scanner blinked. Strange energy readings came from deep below. Lightning flashed across the sky, blue and silent. Mira slowed the bike and looked around. The land was dead, but the air felt alive, like something ancient was breathing under the surface. She parked the bike and took one last deep breath. Her heart beat fast. "I promise never to steal again," she whispered to herself. But I guess some promises are meant to be broken. Then she walked into the dark mist, leaving behind the colony lights unseen in the distance. A pair of red sensors blinked on. Something, or someone, was watching her. The night wind screamed across the wasteland of Alaris 9. Mira stood at the border fence that divided the living colony from the dead zone. The metal sign above her head flickered weakly. "Warning, entry forbidden. Toxic zone ahead." She looked at it once, then at the vast desert stretching beyond. The sand was dark red, and lightning flashed silently across the dusty sky. Her heart pounded. Every story she had ever heard about this place said no one returned alive. She took a deep breath and stepped through a gap in the fence. Her boots sank slightly into the dust. The air smelled like burnt iron and ozone. Her oxygen mask buzzed faintly as it tried to clean the air. She moved forward, gripping her small scanner. The screen showed strange signals, blue spikes of energy coming from deep underground. "This must be it," she whispered. Hours passed as she crossed the wasteland. Broken machines lay scattered across the ground. Old mining bots, half-buried ships, and twisted towers. Their metal frames glowed faintly blue like ghosts left behind. Mira felt eyes on her even though she was alone. Every shadow looked alive, every sound made her turn. At one point, she found a cracked metal plate with old alien symbols carved into it. She brushed off the dust and read the faint words. "Here lies the breath of Alaris." Her pulse quickened. That had to mean the ancient machine Lyran mentioned. The one that could make air. Suddenly, her scanner beeped louder. Energy levels were rising fast. She followed the signal through a canyon of jagged rocks. The wind howled like a living thing. Lightning flashed again, and for a moment she thought she saw movement. A tall shadow watching her from the ridge. She stopped, holding her breath, but when the next flash came, the ridge was empty. She walked faster, her boots echoing softly against the metal ground. Then, after what felt like hours, she saw it. A huge crater filled with broken towers and cables. At the center of the crater stood something enormous. A half-buried structure shaped like a heart made of stone and metal. Pulsing with a dim blue light, "The core," she whispered. Mira slid down the slope carefully, her eyes wide in awe. The machine looked alive. Veins of energy crawled across its surface. Glowing softly, she placed her hand on the cold metal and felt a slow, steady heartbeat. It was faint but real. She took out her small toolkit and started clearing debris from a control panel. If she could activate this machine, maybe she could prove Lyran's truth. Suddenly, a voice echoed behind her. "Don't touch that." Mira spun around, pulling out her wrench like a weapon. Standing there was a tall figure in a black exosuit. Its red eyes glowing faintly through the dust. She took a step back. "Who are you?" she demanded. The figure tilted its head. "You shouldn't be here, human," it said in a deep metallic voice. "This zone belongs to the past." Mira frowned, her heart racing. "Are you with the colony?" she asked. The figure didn't answer. It stepped closer, the sand shifting under its boots. "You carry the scent of the stolen one," it said slowly. The child with silver eyes. Mira's grip tightened on the wrench. "What do you know about Lyran?" she shouted. The figure paused, then spoke again. "He is the key, but not the end," it said. "The breath of Alaris will awaken only when the lost and the guilty stand together." Then, without warning, it turned and vanished into the storm. Moving within human speed, Mira stood frozen, her breath fogging up her mask. What did that mean? Why did it call Lyran the key? The wind picked up again and she had no choice but to focus. She turned back to the core and wiped dust off the main control plate. Beneath it, strange alien runes glowed softly. Reacting to her touch, her scanner flickered and died. The ground vibrated slightly. A soft hum filled the air, growing louder. The blue light from the machine spread like veins across the ground. Lighting up the crater, Mira stepped back, shielding her eyes. A voice echoed faintly through the air. Deep and melodic. "Who disturbs the heart of Alaris?" Mira froze. She looked around, but no one was there. Her hand shook as she whispered, "I'm Mira. I'm here to fix what humans broke." For a moment, there was silence, then the voice replied, "You are not the first human to say that." Suddenly, a burst of light surrounded her and the air shimmered. Images filled her mind, flashes of war, burning cities, and alien ships falling from the sky. She saw humans in armored suits tearing apart machines like this one, stealing their cores. And then she saw something worse. Humans sealing this zone, hiding what they had done when the vision ended. Mira fell to her knees, gasping. Tears rolled down her face. Her voice broke as she said, "They lied to us. All of us." The machine pulsed again, slower this time. "Will you steal again, human?" the voice asked softly. Mira looked up, her eyes glowing with reflected blue light. "If stealing can save a life," she whispered, "then yes, I will." The light faded, leaving only the sound of the wind. Mira stood, weak but determined. She looked at the glowing heart of the planet and whispered, "I'll bring this back, Lyran. I'll bring you life." As she turned to leave, she noticed something buried near the base of the machine, a symbol of the colony carved into the metal. Her stomach twisted. The humans had known about this all along. Above her, hidden in the dust storm, a drone hovered silently, recording everything. Back at the colony, Commander Holt watched the feed on his screen and smiled coldly. "Found you, little thief," he said. "And whatever you found down there, it belongs to us." The blue light from the ancient machine still glowed faintly in the crater. Mira stood before it, her hands trembling, her reflection shining on the metal surface. The air around her hummed softly, as if the planet itself had started to breathe again. For a moment, she forgot her fear. She reached out, pressing her palm against the surface. The machine pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and the light spread through the cracks in the ground. A deep voice echoed through her helmet. "You are human," it said, slow and heavy. "Yet you have awakened me." Mira took a step back, her heart racing. Who are you?" she asked, her voice shaking. The air shimmered, and a holographic figure appeared before her, tall, graceful, made of pure blue light. Its face was neither human nor alien, but something in between, ancient and wise. "I am Aaron," the voice said, "the guardian of breath, the keeper of life for Alaris." Mira stared in awe. Lyran's story was true. The core was alive, and it remembered. Aaron turned its glowing eyes toward her. "Why do you disturb the silence of my heart?" Mira swallowed hard. "The colony is dying," she said. "The aliens, Lyran's people, they can't breathe. They're being left to die." Aaron's light flickered. "I know of the suffering above," it said. "The humans who came centuries ago promised peace, yet they brought greed." The machine's hum grew deeper, almost angry. "They stole our breath and turned our gift into their weapon." Mira felt a chill run through her. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought humans discovered this planet." Aaron shook its head slowly. "Alaris was once a living world," it said. "My creators gave life freely, but humans came, took our air, and left us to die." The hologram dimmed for a moment, then brightened again. "But you are different," it said softly. "Your heart beats with guilt and love, not hunger." Mira looked up, tears in her eyes. "I just want to fix what we broke," she said. "I want to save Lyran." Aaron's voice softened. "The child carries the code," it said. "The one key that can unlock my full power." Mira frowned. "What code?" she asked. "His bloodline," Aaron replied. "He is the last descendant of my creators. Only his life signature can fully awaken me." Mira took a deep breath. "Then I'll bring him here," she said firmly. Aaron's light dimmed again. "Be warned, human," it said. "If I awaken, the humans above will sense it. They will come for me, and for you." Mira wiped her tears and whispered, "Let them come." She began recording the data from the machine on her wrist pad. But before she could finish, the ground trembled violently. The glowing veins of light pulsed faster. Aaron's voice turned sharp. "They have found you." Mira looked up and saw shadows moving along the crater's edge. Searchlights cut through the dust storm. Drones with red eyes descended like vultures. A voice crackled through her comlink. "Commander Holt." "Step away from the machine, Mira," he ordered, his tone cold. "You are under arrest for treason and technology theft." Mira's jaw tightened. "How did you find me?" she shouted. Holt laughed. "You left quite a trail, little thief." She glanced around. She was surrounded. She turned to Aaron, whispering quickly, "Can you fight back?" Aaron's blue light flared. "I am weak," it said, "but with your touch, I can protect you." And for a moment, Mira nodded, pressing her hand to the machine again. The air exploded with energy. A bright blue wave shot outward, knocking the drones from the sky like falling stars. The ground cracked and lightning spiraled into the heavens. Commander Holt shouted, "Hold your fire! She's activating it!" Mira ran toward her hover bike, her heart pounding as she started the engine. The machine's voice echoed one last time. "Mira, take this." A small glowing orb rose from the core and floated into her hands. "This is my heart fragment," Aaron said. "With it, you can summon me when the child arrives." Mira gripped the orb tightly and jumped on the bike. Blasts of plasma fire lit up the sky as she sped across the wasteland. Behind her, the ancient machine sank slowly into the dust, its light fading again in the colony control room. Commander Holt slammed his fist on the table. "She's awakened the AI," he growled. "If she brings that alien child back, we lose control of the oxygen systems." He turned to his officers. "Prepare the hunters," he said. "I want her alive." Back in the wasteland, Mira rode through the storm with tears streaking down her face. The orb glowed faintly in her pocket, whispering in Aaron's voice, You cannot save one life without risking your own. She looked at the dark sky and whispered, I don't care. The wind roared louder as she approached the colony walls. In the distance, sirens began to wail. They had seen her. She pressed the throttle harder, her hover bike leaping over the rocks and flames. She had no plan, no backup, only a promise and a glowing heart in her hands. Far away, Lyron woke from a restless sleep, his eyes glowing faintly blue. He looked toward the dark horizon and whispered, She's coming back. The night air over Alaris 9 burned cold and sharp. Mira's hover bike roared across the rocky ground, leaving behind trails of blue sparks. Her heart thumped like a drum inside her chest. In her pocket, the glowing orb from Aaron pulsed softly, whispering faint sounds, almost like breathing. She knew the soldiers were behind her. She could feel their tracking beams in the dust. But she didn't stop. She couldn't, not yet. At the edge of the colony wall, she slowed the bike and hid it under a wrecked cargo ship. The city lights shimmered above her, golden and cruel. The guards were everywhere. Scanning every sector, she whispered to herself, I need to reach Lyron. Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes stayed focused. She climbed through a maintenance tunnel and crawled into the lower district, the place she once called home. Inside, everything smelled of smoke and oil. Machines hissed and clanked. People moved like shadows, tired and silent. Mira pulled her hood low and moved through the crowd. When she reached a narrow workshop near the old reactor plant, she knocked softly. The door opened just enough for a familiar voice to whisper, Mira. It was Rex, her old friend, the same mechanic who had helped her escape the prison. He pulled her inside quickly and locked the door. You're insane, he hissed. Do you know how much trouble you're in? Mira took off her hood, her hair damp with dust and sweat. I found it, Rex, she said, her voice shaking with excitement. The alien core, it's real. It's alive. Rex stared at her, not speaking. She reached into her pocket and showed him the glowing orb. It floated slightly above her hand, humming softly. This, she said, is part of it. It's heart. Rex's eyes widened. You actually found it, he whispered, almost afraid. She nodded. I have to take Lyron to the Forbidden Zone, she said. He's the key. His blood can unlock it fully. Rex stepped back, shaking his head. Mira, listen to yourself, he said. The colony's already hunting you, and now you want to bring an alien child to a war machine? It's not a weapon, Mira snapped. It's life. It can bring air back to their kind. It can fix what we broke. For a moment, neither spoke. The room filled with the faint hum of machines. Then Rex sighed and rubbed his face. You always had that look, he muttered. The look that gets people killed. Mira frowned. I don't have time for this, she said, heading for the door, but before she could reach it, the door slid open on its own. 2 guards stood outside, rifles raised. Armor gleaming, Mira froze. Her eyes darted toward Rex. He couldn't meet her gaze. Rex, she whispered, her voice breaking. He looked at the ground, shame written all over his face. They promised to clear my record, he said softly. I had no choice. The guards rushed in. Grabbing Mira's arms, she struggled, kicking one of them hard. The orb fell from her hand and rolled under the table, still glowing faintly. Don't let them take it. She screamed, but Rex didn't move. The guards dragged her outside as she shouted his name. The last thing she saw before they pushed her into the transport was Rex picking up the orb, his face pale and full of guilt. Inside the armored transport, Mira sat between 2 guards. Her hands were bound, but her mind raced. She had been betrayed again. Her best friend, the only person she trusted, had handed her over like scrap metal. But she also knew something Rex didn't. She had hidden a backup data key in the orb, and if he tried to use it, Aaron would know. The transport sped through the city, lights flashing outside. When it stopped, Mira was pulled out and brought to the central tower, Commander Holt's headquarters. He stood by the window, staring at the twin moons above the colony. When he turned, his eyes were cold. So, he said slowly, you found my secret. Mira glared at him. You stole the oxygen generators, she said. You sold them for profit while the aliens died. Holt smiled thinly. They're not people, Mira, he said calmly. They're resources, like the machines we mine. Useful until they're not. Her hands clenched into fists. You call yourself human? She said through gritted teeth. He laughed. Humanity means survival, not mercy. He walked closer and leaned in. Now tell me where the core is, he whispered. Mira stared back defiantly. It's somewhere you'll never find, she said. Holt smirked. Oh, I think I already have someone working on it. At that exact moment, in Rex's workshop, the orb on his table began to glow brighter. Rex stared at it, sweating. He whispered. Mira said it could bring air. Maybe it can fix everything. He reached out and touched it. Instantly, the lights flickered, and a blue beam shot from the orb, burning through the ceiling. Aaron's voice filled the room. You were not chosen, Rex screamed as the energy threw him back, knocking over equipment. The orb lifted itself into the air and vanished through the roof, flying into the night sky back at the tower. Holt's screens flashed with alerts. Unidentified energy surge, shouted one of the officers. Mira smiled faintly through her bruises. It's awake again, she whispered. The alarms blared louder, and the tower began to shake slightly. Commander Holt looked toward the window as a blue light glowed on the horizon. Mira, he said, his voice dark, what have you done? She looked up, her eyes cold and steady. I didn't do anything, she said. Alaris did. The guards rushed to restrain her, but she didn't resist because deep down, she knew what that light meant. Aaron was coming back, and this time no one could stop it. The storm over Alaris 9 had never burned brighter. Blue lightning slashed across the red sky, lighting the horizon with fire and fury. Down in the colony, sirens screamed through every street. People ran for cover as towers flickered with strange energy. Something ancient had awakened, and everyone could feel it in their bones, in the command tower. Commander Holt shouted orders to his soldiers. Seal all exits, find that alien child, and kill the AI signal, he barked. But his voice trembled just slightly, because deep down even he was afraid. The lights above him flickered again, showing glimpses of static and blue mist. Mira has doomed us all, he muttered under his breath. Far away, in the lower district, Mira ran through the smoke-filled alleys, her arm still bruised from the guard's grip, but her heart burned stronger than ever. She had escaped the tower in the chaos after the orb's explosion. Now she had only one goal, to reach Lyran. Every second mattered, every breath counted. She pushed through a hidden gate and entered the alien shelter. The air was thin, the lights dim, and dozens of alien children lay on the floor. Gasping weakly, the adults sat silently, eyes full of hopelessness. When they saw Mira, they backed away, afraid. She raised her hands and said softly, I'm here to help. A small voice called out from the corner. Mira. She turned, and there was Lyran, pale and shaking, his silver eyes glowing faintly. She ran to him and knelt beside him, holding his small hand. You came back, he whispered. I promised I would, she said, smiling weakly. Then she pulled out a small piece of metal from her pocket, a shard of Aaron's core. Still glowing with life, Lyran's eyes widened. You found it, he breathed. Mira nodded. And now we're going to use it. She helped him to his feet, wrapping him in a protective cloak. Can you walk? She asked. Lyran nodded weakly. The others, he said, glancing at the dying children. Mira squeezed his hand. If we don't move now, none of us will survive, she said softly. He looked into her eyes and understood. They left through the back tunnels, heading toward the transport yard. But as they reached the open street, bright lights flashed across the ground. Soldiers, armed and armored, surrounded them. At the front stood Commander Holt, his cold smile sharp as a blade. I should have known you'd run back to your little pet, he said. Mira stepped in front of Lyran. You don't deserve the air you breathe, she said through clenched teeth. Holt laughed softly. Oh, don't worry, thief. I'll be the one controlling it soon. He raised his hand and his soldiers aimed their rifles. Mira closed her eyes for a moment and whispered to the shard. Aaron, it's time. The metal piece glowed brighter, humming softly. Then a deep voice echoed from within. I hear you. Mira! A wave of blue light exploded outward. The soldiers stumbled as their weapons sparked and died. The ground shook violently, and the sky split open with blinding light. From the horizon, massive columns of blue energy rose like pillars, connecting earth to sky. Aaron's full power was awakening. The entire planet seemed to breathe again. Holt shouted, Fire! Fire now! The soldiers opened fire, but the bullets turned to dust before they could hit. The air shimmered with energy, protecting Mira and Lyran like a living shield. Mira grabbed Lyran's hand, shouting, Run! They sprinted through the chaos as the soldiers fell to the ground, blinded by the light. The pair reached the old reactor field where Mira's hoverbike was hidden. They jumped on and the bike roared to life. Speeding through the ruins, behind them the colony burned, lights exploding, towers collapsing under the surge of power. Aaron's voice echoed across the sky, calm yet thunderous. The breath of Alaris returns to its people. Mira looked back as she drove. Tears mixing with dust on her face, Lyran held the glowing shard close to his chest. "It's calling me," he said weakly. "It's your legacy," Mira replied. "You were born for this." The closer they got to the forbidden zone, the stronger the pull became. The air grew thick with blue mist and static. The machine at the heart of the crater was alive again, waiting for them, but Holt wasn't finished. A black ship rose from the burning colony, chasing them through the storm. Holt himself piloted it, his eyes full of rage. "You think you can steal my world?" He growled into the mic. "I'll burn you both to ash." He fired plasma rounds that exploded beside the bike. Throwing Mira off balance, she held tight, steering through the lightning-filled air. Lyran screamed, "He's right behind us!" "I know," Mira shouted back. "Hold on!" A blast hit the ground beside them, flipping the bike. Mira and Lyran were thrown across the sand. Tumbling hard, Mira groaned, struggling to stand. Her arm bled, her body ached, but she saw the core glowing in the crater ahead. She turned to Lyran. "Can you reach it?" she asked. Lyran nodded weakly. "I'll try," he said, and started crawling toward it. Holt's ship landed hard behind them. He stepped out with his weapon drawn, shouting, "Stop right there!" Mira stood between him and Lyran. Breathing heavily, "Go ahead," she said. "Shoot me," Holt smirked. "With pleasure," he said, raising his blaster before he could fire. A massive beam of light erupted from the crater. The ground split apart, and the machine's voice thundered through the sky. "No more stealing breath?" A surge of energy hit Holt's ship, tearing it apart and throwing him backward. Mira shielded her eyes as the light surrounded Lyran. His small body floated above the crater, his eyes glowing bright silver. Aaron's voice spoke again, calm and powerful. "The key has returned home." The storm began to calm, the air turning clear and fresh for the first time in centuries. Alaris 9 breathed freely again. Mira fell to her knees, smiling through her tears. They had done it. They had brought life back. But as the light dimmed, she saw Lyran slowly sinking to the ground. "Motionless, Lyran," she cried, running toward him. Aaron's voice whispered softly, "He gave his breath for all." Mira lifted the boy in her arms, sobbing quietly. Around her the sky was blue, pure and alive, but inside her heart it felt like night. The wind over Alaris 9 was quiet now. The red dust had settled, and the storm that once tore across the planet was gone. The sky, once choked with smoke and lightning, now shimmered with soft blue light. For the first time in living memory, the air was clean. The world had changed, but for Mira, it didn't feel like victory. She knelt beside Lyran's still body, her shaking hands brushing the silver strands of his hair. The small alien boy looked peaceful, almost asleep. The glow in his eyes had faded. His chest no longer moved. Mira's tears fell silently onto his skin, around her. The ground still pulsed with faint blue veins of energy. Aaron's living light. The ancient machine had awakened fully, and Lyran's sacrifice had made it possible. "Mira," came a soft, familiar voice. She looked up, and before her stood a glowing figure, Aaron's projection. Tall and radiant, its voice was calm but full of sadness. "The breath of Alaris has returned to all life," it said. But the child's breath was the final spark. Mira clenched her fists, her voice breaking. "He was just a kid," she whispered. "He didn't deserve this." Aaron looked down at her gently. "Neither did you," it said. "Yet you both gave what others would never give. Hope." Mira wiped her tears and stood slowly. Her body ached, her mind felt heavy. "What happens now?" she asked. Aaron's light shimmered softly. "The planet lives again," it said, "but humans must choose how they live upon it." As it spoke, Mira saw lights rising across the horizon. Human survivors coming out from the ruins, staring in awe at the new sky for the first time. They could breathe without masks, children laughed, and even the cold metal of the colony looked softer under the sunlight. But not all were celebrating. In the wreckage of a crashed ship nearby, Commander Holt crawled out, covered in ash and blood. His uniform was torn, his eyes wild. He stared at the glowing land and screamed, "You think you've saved them, thief?" He shouted, "You've doomed us all." Mira turned to face him, her expression calm but fierce. "You were the one stealing the air," she said. "Now it belongs to everyone." Holt raised his weapon, his hand shaking. "Humans built this colony," he growled. "We earned it." Mira took a slow step forward. "Then maybe it's time we earned forgiveness too," she said softly. Before Holt could fire, a beam of blue light shot from the ground, wrapping around him. He screamed as Aaron's voice filled the air. Greed cannot survive in the breath of life. The light consumed him, and in a blink he was gone. Only silence remained. Mira stood still for a moment, her heart heavy but steady. The war was over. She turned back to Lyron's body and whispered, "You can rest now, little one." Aaron's voice echoed softly. "His spirit lives in every breath this world takes." The air shimmered faintly, and Mira felt a soft wind brush her face, warm, kind, alive. She smiled through her tears. "He's free," she whispered as the days passed, the colony changed. The humans who had survived began to rebuild, but this time they did it side by side with the aliens. No more walls, no more division. The same oxygen flowed through every home, every lung, every life. The greed that once ruled the colony was gone. What replaced it was something better. Unity. Mira helped guide the rebuilding, though she rarely spoke of what happened in the Forbidden Zone. Sometimes she would walk to the edge of the crater where the ancient core slept. The air there always felt warmer, more alive, and every time she closed her eyes she could hear Aaron's gentle hum. It sounded like a heartbeat, steady, eternal, watching over them all one evening. As the sun set over the shining city, children ran through the streets laughing, their oxygen masks long forgotten. An alien girl with silver eyes ran up to Mira, holding a small glowing flower. "Miss Mira," she said softly. "They say you stole the stars for us." Mira smiled faintly, kneeling beside her. "No," she said kindly. "I just returned what was already yours." The little girl placed the glowing flower in Mira's hand and ran off, her laughter echoing like music. Mira looked up at the twin moons and whispered, "I promised never to steal again." Then she smiled softly, tears glimmering in her eyes. But maybe some promises are meant to be broken. The camera of memory would rise slowly then, showing the new world from above. Fields of alien blue grass grew where deserts once stood. Human and alien children played together under the glowing moons. And in the heart of the planet, Aaron's voice whispered one last time,
"She gave her breath so that all could breathe." At the colony gate, a new statue stood tall.
It showed Mira holding an apple in one hand, the symbol of her first theft, and a glowing heart in the other. Beneath it were carved the words, "She promised never to steal again, but she stole hope for everyone." The wind blew softly through the open sky, carrying with it the laughter of children and the hum of life reborn. And for the first time since the stars began to fade, Alaris 9 truly breathed again.